would like to present Mammie Vallecillo. Her Capstone is about Nicaragua, and it's called A través de la historia de la frontera, Nicaragua, una década de revolución y su defensa. Across the frontier of history, Nicaragua, a decade for revolution and its defense. Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, sí, claro, buenos días. My name is Mammie Vallecillo, and my presentation is going to be on Nicaragua, a decade of revolution. Before delving in, the scene must be set, and the background must be understood. The Republic of Nicaragua is the largest nation in Central America, both size-wise, with 50,000 square miles, and population-wise, with more than 5 million inhabitants. Nicaragua is a country overwhelmed by its history. Throughout it, it has suffered from political instability, civil war, poverty, foreign intervention, and natural disasters. During most of the 20th century, it has also suffered under dictatorial regimes. From the mid-1930s until 1979, the Somoza family controlled the government, the military, and an ever-expanding sector of the Nicaraguan economy. On July 19, 1979, Somoza rule came to an end after the triumph of an insurrection movement led by the Sandinista National Liberation Front, or FSLN, which led to the development of a different type of authoritarian regime that lasted for a decade. Four of the men who would mold Nicaragua's future of the 20th century were Augusto Sandino, Anastasio Somoza Garcia, and his two sons, Luis Somoza de Bell and Anastasio Somoza de Bell, all followed different lights, and in so doing profoundly affected the course of Nicaraguan history. Sandino's main thesis was the support of nationalism and anti-imperialism, specifically the resistance to U.S. occupation and domination of Nicaragua. The U.S. had maintained their Marine forces since 1912 and on, with only brief periods of respite. They had also interfered in internal affairs through the control of the Conservative Party, as well as through its economic influence. Sandino believed in the glorification of personal heritage and liberty, and once said, "The sovereignty and liberty of a people are not to be discussed, but rather defended with weapons in hand." The U.S., wishing to end the conflicts between both parties, as well as the casualties inflicted on their force, created a peace agreement in which all the liberals agreed to sign, except for Sandino, who chose to keep on fighting until the U.S. had left Nicaragua. Even though Sandino was considered an idealist with radical political and social ideas, like having communal lands and a unified Central America, he was always a man of action, organizing the sentiments of the common peasants into revolt, which provided the manpower to fight and die when needed, as well as a constant information network to Sandino's backwoods fighting. The U.S. Finally capitulated to Sandino's request and left Nicaragua for good in 1933. With his ideal fulfilled, Sandino chose to agree to lay down his weapons and sign a preliminary agreement with the government, in which the agreement stated that in exchange for peace, if there were any men that wanted to continue supporting him, they would do so in a commune. These men would then be formed into a military group under the president's supervision for 1 year. Also, as the U.S. left Nicaragua, the Nicaraguan government created a powerful National Guard, which was headed under the command of Somoza Garcia, which was supposed to create a solid non-political force in which the country would grow in stability. The problem, however, was that Somoza Garcia was anything but a political, and he turned the National Guard for his own uses. In 1934, as Sandino was invited to the president's home in Managua, the capital city, when he got there, when he arrived, he publicly announced that the National Guard was unconstitutional, and for this reason, he wasn't going to lay down his weapons. After much talk, both him and the president created an agreement in which, among a lot of things, would reduce Somoza Garcia's power through the National Guard. On February 20th, as Sandino and his party left the president's home, they were surrounded by the National Guard, which was under the command of Somoza Garcia. For fear of losing power, he and his party were executed. The next day, they raided a northern commune, destroyed it, and killed most of his men, their wives, and their children. The Somoza dynasty's hold upon political power had always been somewhat tenuous, never totally secure. They sustained their regime by having four techniques. The first one was by coercion, by means of controlling the instrument of force and power. The second one was a careful juggling of internal political forces by manipulating the political groups. The third was the manipulation of external support and power derived from the U.S. They had moral support, they had economic and military assistance. And finally, so too to a lesser degree, did the cooperation and friendliness of neighboring regimes in Central America figured importantly in the Somoza equation for sustaining their regime. This brings me up to the two main ideas of my presentation. The first one deals with the Sandinistas. I'll give a little background on their origins, on their ideology, and on their goals for the revolution. And the second one, how the revolution affected the national culture, but particularly poetry. Oh, what happened to the other one? Oh, there we go. They were founded in 1961 as a human rights guerrilla revolutionary movement, first by a group of university students in the late 50s, and then when they came to power in the 70s, when enough students and peasants were involved, joined in, it formed a nationalistic Marxist party. By late 1979, the FSLN could be described as a political military organization supported by four pillars. The first one, Marxism, as interpreted by Lenin, Ho Chi Minh, among others. The second one, they were inspired by the revolutionary and class-conscious ideas and practice of Sandino. They were inspired by the Cuban Revolution and influenced by the Christian theology of liberation, in which the Sandinistas justified the revolution as freeing the people from political, social, and economic oppression. The program of the FSLN was designed to attract many different groups victimized by Somoza. It appealed to peasants and factory workers denied fair wages and unions. It appealed to the urban poor. It appealed to the many who were denied decent public services, and many others. And here's just a list of some of their goals. Now, while the novel became the crucial form of literary nationalism in most of Latin America, in Central America, poetry assumed this role. And in no Central American country was it as important an element of our national culture as it was in Nicaragua. One of the most important poets, Latin American poets, was Ernesto Cardenal, who was to become a legend in his lifetime. But most importantly, he was seen as a prophet in his land by being the first Nicaraguan priest to join in the late 60s the FSLN. The second son of a wealthy family who lived in the conservative city of Granada, he took part in the attempt in 1954 to overthrow Somoza Garcia. In 1965, he responded to a clear call of the religious life when he entered a Catholic seminary before founding a religious and artistic community on the archipelago of Salantinum, which is a remote island on the southern part of Lake Nicaragua. He not only served as a poet or as a priest, but he also was a minister of the culture in the early and mid-80s, which embarked on setting up poetry workshops or talleres de poesía, and where there were all kinds of participants, whether members of the Sandinista government, policemen, students, just ordinary working people who wanted to learn how to write poetry and to share their sentiments on the revolutionary, on the war. Its primary aim was to democratize culture to an entire people. The central theme was love and the historical events, which shouldn't have been treated in different languages. Instead, that the personal should be placed alongside history and not seen as a separate realm. The poet, like many of his poems, inhabits the past and the present. It talks about martyred friends. It talks about the pressing governmental duties, and also where he sees the kingdom of God as a breakthrough in the revolutionary process. Written in 1985, Flights of Victory, just this one right here, aims at synthesizing the duality of materialism and idealism, or in other words, between the division of mind and body. It also points out to socialism, that is to a social system that attempts to break down class structures, that empowers people with more decision-making possibilities, that tries to provide to everyone with free health care or education or housing and so forth. It also provides the reader with the expectations that the social circumstances that do exist are about to improve. In Flights of Victory, there's 4 sections, and each are grouped according to the major theme, which is flight. The first one is Flights of Insurrection, and it provides a picture of the struggle against Somoza as it develops and deepens in the 70s. The second one is the Flights of Victory and Celebration, just like mere testimonies of the people involved. Flights of Reconstruction is part 3. It talks about the first months, it talks about the tasks that need to be accomplished during the first months of insurrection and as well as the reconstruction. And the last group pertains to the Flights of Memory and Vision, where it projects the fundamental themes of key issues, the moments and the figures in the distant as well as in the recent national history. The first poem from Flights of Insurrection is called Barricade or Barricada, and what it does, it returns us to the concrete details of the events of May through July of 1979 that finally brought down the Somoza regime. And I'm just going to read a little bit to see. What is that? Okay. Okay. It says, it was everybody's task. The ones who went off without kissing their mothers, so they wouldn't know they left. The boy who kissed his girlfriend for the last time, and the girl who left her boyfriend's arms to embrace Efal. The one who kissed his grandmother, who was like a mother to him, and said he'd come back soon, took his cap, and didn't return. Those who were in the mountains for years, years in the underground, in cities more dangerous than the mountain. The ones who served as couriers along the shady paths of the north, or as chauffeurs in Managua. Those who brought arms abroad dealing with gangsters, those who set up meetings abroad with flags and shouts, or walked the rugs of a president's reception room. Those who assaulted barracks with the cry of free homeland or death. The vigilant boy on the corner of the liberated street with a red and black handkerchief over his face. The children carting street stones, yanking them from the streets. The stones a business for Somoza, and carting street stones and street stones for the people's barricades. Those who did the important jobs and those who did the less important ones. This was everybody's task. The truth is that all of us put street stones in the great barricade. It was everybody's task. It was the people united, and we did it. The second poem is called Vision of a Face, and it basically just describes how all faces become one. Sun and flags. First the hymns, sun and rallying cries. Signs and loudspeakers. Applause and rallying cries. Sun and smiles. Eyes of every color, every tone of skin, every kind of hair. Each smiling, mouth distinct, each nose different. Long, short, straight, curly, afro hair, young people, a fat man, a woman with a child, an old wrinkled woman, little kids. Yellow pants, red blouse, white t-shirt, red and blue. White, olive green of the uniforms. Black, orange, pink, yellow. And suddenly from the stand, I saw one face, with thousands of smiles and thousands of pairs of eyes. A face of faces, a body of bodies, like those newspaper photos made up of tiny dots. The face was still blurry, but it had kind of a halo. I saw that this united flesh was the victory over death. Photographers flashing away, the people squeezing together, and you could see the unity of everyone. Unity, the guarantee of victory. The third one is called Busy, Ocupados, and it's a long day's end journey throughout all of Nicaragua, and it ends in the bedroom of Cardenal. Let's call it. This is a little long, but I'll make it short. We're all very busy. The truth is that we're all so busy. In these difficult and jubilant days that will never come back, but we will never forget. We're very busy with the confiscations. So many confiscations. So many land distributions. Everyone taking down the street barricades so that cars can get through. The barricades in all the neighborhoods. Changing the names of the streets and neighborhoods as well as the Somacista names. Digging up the murdered ones. Repairing the bombarded hospitals. This hospital will be called such and such. Now creating a new police force. Doing a count of the artists. Bringing drinking water to one place or another. And still others are asking for electric light. The light the dictator had cut off. Quickly restoring the installations, water and light for Sandino City. They decided to call their neighborhood Sandino City. And the last poem, it's called Vision from the Blue Window, and it depicts Cardenal flying over the homeland, seeing the scenes of battle, of fallen heroes, and that now everything is blue. From the round window, everything is blue. The earth bluish, blue-green blue. Everything is blue, blue lakes and lagoons, blue volcanoes. The further away the land, the bluer it is. Blue islands and a blue lake. This is the face of the liberated land. And where all the people fought, I think, for love. To live without exploitations, hatred. To love each other in a lovely land, very lovely, not only for the land, but for its people. Above all, for its people. That's why God rendered it so lovely for its society. And in all those blue places they fought, they suffered for a society of love, here in this land. A bit of blue has greater intensity, and it seemed to me I was seeing the places of all the battles and all the deaths. That behind this glass, small round blue, I was seeing all the shades of blue. And these are just some of the themes of some of his poems, from history to the connection between socialism and Christianity, and so forth. Now, with the 1979 victory of the Sandinista revolution, the door was opened to a completely new order in Nicaragua, and one in which the FSLN promised to make social women's emancipation a major feature. In this political context, the women's movement united into a cohesive body, and this is where feminist literature came into being. One of the most influential poets of this time was Gioconda Belli. Women describing their bodies discursively was considered a powerful force in appropriating the patriarchal discourse. To use the erotic description of the female body as a tool against patriarchy is not in itself a revolutionary act. It has to be accompanied by political action a political action that works towards altering the ideology, the institutions, and in the end, the economic and political systems that promote patriarchy. After the revolution, Gioconda Belli's works, poetry, became even more significant for the fact that it was at this moment of transition where women organizations were making their voices heard. In her work, certain territories like motherhood, like childbirth, like reproduction, they were all that were traditionally seen as something female, was being challenged and was being reinforced during Sandinismo. While women had frequently written love poems, they had not ventured into description of physical intimacy, intercourse, and childbirth. Writers of both genders repressed observations about female bodily functions and thus contributed in many ways to the perception as women being passive. Women were seen, at least until the 60s, as dehumanized sites for men's orgasms. Belli assumed the role of eroticizing the female, reclaiming an area of representation unsurpassed by patriarchy. And from East Rib, Belli calls, or de la costilla de Eva, Bailey calls for the affirmation of the female body and the body politic. Arising out of the struggle with silence and the once dominant patriarchal ideology, her poetry attempts to define the human subject as active participant in the eras of revolution. In it, she integrates love, whether it be sexual or revolutionary, tends to lose its material roots. For instance, she might describe the magical substance of erotic pleasure as linked to armed struggle. This contrasts to her detailed representations of physical love, but we must keep in mind that neither sexual nor revolutionary love can escape the trappings of romanticism and philosophical idealism. The title, From Eve's Rib, itself alludes to the scripture, to a feminist inversion of the Bible. And I'll just read 3 poems and that should be it. The first one is called War Song or Canto de Guerra. The speaker deals with the metaphorical apprehension of reality through poetic language, her self-image as a woman, and the idea of utopia. Poetry, the subject, and the revolution are perceived as a totality that resists silence, alienation, and outside aggression mediated by the armed struggle. And then the second one will be called, it's called Reflections or Reflexiones. Bailey portrays the speaker as linked with nature, which is an integral part of her, and then has her join the collective or the revolution. Here the poet, woman, revolutionary, becomes political conscious when she is reborn. The war song, this is, I'll read it to you. Where does it start? Okay. The war will come, my love, and in combat there will be no respite, nor moment for song, but rather poetry being born from a dark hole of the barrel of arms. The war will come, my love, and we will be mixed with one another in the trenches, digging the future on the homeland's lap, deterring the fire and the edge of hearts, the hordes of barbarians, attempting to take what we are and what we love. The war will come, my love, and I will wrap myself in your invincible shadow, like a ferocious lioness. I will protect my children's land, and no one will detain this victory. Fully armed with the future, although we may not see one another, and some memories may die. I swear to you, holding Nicaragua like a young child, they will not cross the border. My love, we will defeat them. And the second poem, Reflections. Okay. My heart has been reborn from tall mountains, from a melting fire, from sparrows, from moons with a looking glass on their faces, because the struggle is the greatest of the songs. And if I can learn, and if nude, I can dress myself in love, and if silent, I can speak. And all comes down to gazing at the lakes that engulf life, gather their fishes, tenderly remove the seaweed that one day became entwined in my hair and continues flying like butterflies. And I forgot to mention the last poem. It's called We Will Continue to Be Reborn, and it's from the category Sexual Liberation and the Revolution. And it deals with reproduction. Is represented as an act of love, which is rooted in biological as well as ethical urges. Motherhood is celebrated and encouraged. This poem equates female patriotism with maternity. And it says, come and give me your hand, that hand, young woman, a militant. Now that revolution and blood unites us, we will face this future of war and of victory together. And when you love a man and life also blossoms forth from your life, we will be born again many times, prolonging a red flag, daughter, woman, compañera. And my conclusion is that we come to learn from these poets, revolutionaries, that Nicaragua's revolution, like its poetry under the banner of the FSLN, focused their creativity on the task of constructing a new nation and a new Nicaraguan culture. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. You have a 10 minutes break and 5 minutes? Okay. My director is telling me it's 5 minutes break. You got in the TV that you have the person, you are reading something, the person saying, no, so you have 5 minutes break. And look at the portfolio.